Everyone talks about Austin. Everyone talks about San Antonio's Riverwalk. But nobody's telling you about the tiny towns tucked in between. The ones where you can stand in the middle of Main Street at sunset and not hear a single car horn. Texas has over 200 towns with fewer than 5,000 people, and a handful are so stunning that National Geographic and Southern Living keep quietly ranking them among the most beautiful in America. Before we count them down, hit subscribe. You won't want to miss what's coming at number 1. Let's get into it. Number 10. Salado. Salado feels like someone took a European storybook village and dropped it along a spring-fed creek in central Texas. And once you see it, you'll understand why photographers drive hours just to catch it at golden hour. The town sits directly on Salado Creek, and its historic district is packed with limestone buildings dating back to the 1850s. Structures that have survived floods, fires, and over a century and a half of Texas weather. Today, those same buildings house art galleries, boutique shops, and creekside cafes. But what truly sets Salado apart from every other historic downtown in the state is that the creek itself runs directly through the middle of the shopping district. You can sit down for lunch on a patio with your feet practically dangling over the water, watching ducks glide past while you eat. There's also a quieter side to Salado most visitors never discover: the Stagecoach Inn, one of the oldest continuously operating inns in Texas, once hosted guests like Sam Houston and Robert E. Lee. A small town secret, hiding in plain sight. Best time to visit: fall, when the pecan trees lining the creek turn a deep gold, and the town hosts its annual Gathering of the Scots Festival, complete with bagpipes echoing across the water. Do this. Walk the Salado Creek Trail, right at golden hour. It's one of the most photographed, yet strangely uncrowded spots in the entire region, and you'll likely have long stretches of it entirely to yourself. If you're building a Texas road trip list, Salado is the kind of stop that takes 20 minutes to fall in love with, and an entire afternoon to leave. Number 9. Boerne. Boerne, pronounced Boerne, is the town hill country locals quietly visit when they want the charm of Fredericksburg without fighting the crowds for a parking spot. Founded in the 1800s by German freethinkers who wanted a place to build their own version of intellectual and cultural freedom, Boerne's Main Street is lined with original 19th century limestone storefronts, many of them still run by the same families who built them generations ago. Walking down that street feels less like sightseeing and more like stepping into someone's living history. What genuinely sets Boerne apart, though, is the Cibolo Nature Center, sitting right at the edge of downtown. It's a rare setup. You can hike through wetlands, native prairie, and dense woodland all in a single afternoon, spot herons and deer along the way, and then walk 5 minutes back into town for dinner without ever getting in a car. Few small towns anywhere manage to blend nature and Main Street this seamlessly. Best time to visit: spring, when wildflowers explode across the nature center trails and the whole area turns into a wall of color. Do this. Time your trip with Second Saturday, a monthly evening market where the entire downtown transforms into an open-air art walk, with local musicians playing on street corners and shops staying open late. And before we move to number 8, if you're enjoying this list, now's a great time to hit that subscribe button. This channel is building out a full series on Texas's most underrated towns, and you don't want to miss the rest of them. Number 8. Rockport. Rockport is proof that Texas isn't just hill country and desert. This is your coastal small town, and it's stunning in a completely different way from everything else on this list. Sitting right on Aransas Bay, Rockport is a working fishing town first, and a tourist destination second, which is exactly what gives it its character. You'll see an active shrimp fleet docked alongside pastel-colored beach cottages, and locals who've lived off these waters for generations. But the fact most visitors never hear is this: Rockport is one of the best places in the entire country to spot whooping cranes, one of the rarest birds on Earth, standing nearly 5 feet tall, which migrate here every single winter after nearly going extinct decades ago. Beyond the bird watching, Rockport has quietly become an arts town too. Sculptures dot the waterfront, and a local art community has grown around the coastal light that painters have chased here for decades. Best time to visit: winter, from November through February. for peak crane season and comfortable mild coastal weather that beats the summer heat found everywhere else in Texas. Do this. Book a sunset boat tour out of the harbor. Watching the working shrimp boats silhouetted against a burning orange sky over the bay is a view you simply won't find inland. If a coastal Texas town like this surprised you, that's exactly the kind of hidden gem content this channel is built around. So go ahead and subscribe now if you haven't already, because towns 7 through 1 only get more beautiful from here. Number 7. Gruene. Gruene isn't even its own official city. Technically, it's a historic district inside New Braunfels, but it's so visually and culturally distinct that it earns its own spot on this list without question. Gruene Hall, built back in 1878, holds the title of the oldest continually operating dance hall in Texas, and stepping inside feels like stepping into a different century entirely. Creaky wooden floors, string lights, and a stage that's hosted everyone from unknown local acts to major country legends decades before they became famous. The rest of the district matches that same energy. Original wooden storefronts, a 19th century cotton gin that's been converted into a shopping and dining complex, and live music spilling out onto the street on almost any given night of the week. What makes Gruene especially worth the trip is how it layers experiences on top of each other. You can spend your morning floating down the Guadalupe River, your afternoon browsing antique shops in buildings older than most U.S. states' modern history, and your evening two-stepping in a dance hall that's been standing since the days of horse-drawn wagons. Best time to visit: late spring or early fall, so you can pair the historic district with a float down the nearby Guadalupe River without the peak summer crowds. Do this. Catch a show at Gruene Hall regardless of who's performing. The building itself, with its worn wood and century of stories, is worth the ticket price on its own. Small towns like this rarely stay hidden gems for long, so if you want to see the rest of this list before everyone else discovers these places, subscribing helps a lot. Number 6. Jefferson. Jefferson looks like it was pulled straight out of the deep south, not Texas. And honestly, that's exactly the point, and exactly why it feels so different from everything else on this list. Once a major steamboat port that rivaled Galveston in importance, Jefferson is now home to over 60 buildings on the National Register of Historic Places, moss-draped bayous winding around the edges of town, and horse-drawn carriage rides that clatter through downtown after dark. The town fully leans into its ghost story reputation too, but instead of feeling like a cheap gimmick, the candlelit historic home tours here feel genuinely eerie, partly because so many of the buildings are untouched originals rather than modern reconstructions. What most visitors don't expect is just how much water shapes this town. Jefferson grew because steamboats could reach it via Big Cypress Bayou, and that same waterway is still the best way to experience it today, gliding under a canopy of cypress trees dripping with Spanish moss, in water so still it mirrors the trees perfectly. Best time to visit: December, when the entire town commits to candlelight tours for the holidays, and every historic home glows with lantern light instead of electric strings. Do this. Take a boat tour on Big Cypress Bayou. It genuinely feels like Louisiana bayou country rather than Texas, and it's one of the most unique landscapes in the entire state. Jefferson is the kind of town that surprises people who think they already know Texas, and that's the whole point of this list. Number 5. Granbury. Granbury's town square might be the single most photogenic courthouse square in the entire state, and once you're standing in the middle of it, it's easy to see why. The 1886 Hood County Courthouse anchors the square, its clock tower visible from blocks away, surrounded by rows of restored Victorian-era buildings now filled with boutiques, bakeries, and restaurants. Just a short walk from the square sits Lake Granbury, which gives this town a rare combination almost no other historic square in Texas has. Genuine 19th century charm and waterfront views, both reachable on foot in the same afternoon. Adding to that is the Granbury Opera House, still actively hosting live performances today, which brings a real touch of old-world culture that most small towns simply don't have the infrastructure or the history to support. Locals will tell you it's also one of the only squares in Texas where you can watch a live show, eat dinner, and catch a lake sunset, all within a few blocks of each other. Best time to visit: October, when the historic square lights up for fall festivals and the cooler weather makes walking the lake path far more enjoyable. Do this. Grab a sunset spot along the lake first, then walk into the square for dinner afterward. That order lets you catch both signature landscapes in a single evening instead of choosing between them. Granbury is exactly the kind of underrated stop that deserves way more attention than it gets. So if you're finding value in this list, subscribing genuinely helps push towns like this in front of more people. Number 4. Bandera. Bandera calls itself the cowboy capital of the world, and unlike a lot of towns that slap on a Western theme for tourists, Bandera actually earns that title. This is the real deal. Working dude ranches spread across the surrounding hills, weekly rodeos that draw both locals and travelers, and a main street where you're just as likely to see someone ride in on horseback as pull up in a pickup truck. The difference between Bandera and other Western-themed towns is that its cowboy culture is still economically active. Ranching here is a genuine, ongoing way of life, not a performance built for photos. What makes Bandera especially worth the trip is how immersive it can be if you let it. Many of the guest ranches around town let visitors actually participate, herding cattle, learning to rope, riding trails through the hill country, rather than just watching from a distance. It's one of the only places on this list where you can go from spectator to participant in a single weekend. Best time to visit: summer, for peak rodeo season, when Friday and Saturday nights bring bull riding, barrel racing, and a genuinely electric crowd. Do this. Book a night or two at one of the working guest ranches instead of a hotel in town. It's the most authentic way to actually experience Bandera rather than simply pass through it on your way somewhere else. For anyone who thinks Cowboy Town means a cheesy tourist trap, Bandera is the town that proves otherwise. Number 3. Marfa. Marfa is unlike anything else on this list, and honestly, unlike almost anywhere else in America, which is exactly why it's earned a strange kind of international fame despite being in the middle of nowhere. Out in the vast West Texas desert, this tiny town has become an unlikely hub for minimalist art and large-scale installations, largely thanks to artist Donald Judd, who moved here in the 1970s specifically to escape the New York art scene and ended up filling old military buildings with massive permanent art pieces that now draw visitors from around the world. Then there's the phenomenon that made Marfa famous long before the art scene did: the Marfa lights. On clear nights, unexplained glowing orbs appear along the desert horizon, flickering, splitting, and merging in ways that scientists still haven't fully explained after more than a century of documented sightings. Whether you believe it's atmospheric refraction or something stranger, standing in the desert dark waiting for them to appear is an experience unlike anything else in Texas. Best time to visit: fall or spring, when desert nights are cool enough to comfortably sit outside for hours watching the horizon. Do this. Visit the official Marfa Lights viewing area after dark. Then spend the next morning walking through the Chinati Foundation's outdoor art installations while the desert light is still soft. Marfa isn't conventionally pretty the way some other towns on this list are. It's strange, stark, and unforgettable, which is exactly why people keep coming back. Number 2. Wimberley. Wimberley is the town people in Austin quietly escape to when they want to feel like they've left Texas entirely, even though they're barely an hour from the city. Nestled where Cypress Creek meets the Blanco River, Wimberley's biggest draw is Jacob's Well, a strikingly clear natural spring pool so deep that it's actually classified as a technical cave diving site, one of the few in the country open to trained divers. Standing at the edge and looking down into that impossibly clear blue water, it genuinely doesn't look like it belongs in Texas at all. The town square hosts a Market Days event that's been running for decades, drawing artisans and craftspeople from across the hill country, and the surrounding hills are covered in dense cypress trees that turn the creek an almost unreal shade of emerald green by midsummer. It's the kind of green that photographs almost don't do justice to. You really do need to see it in person. Best time to visit: summer, specifically for swimming at Jacob's Well and Blue Hole, though it's worth booking swim permits ahead of time, since both spots fill up fast during peak season. Do this. Float the Blanco River in the early morning, before the crowds arrive. It's the most peaceful version of the town you'll experience, with mist still hanging over the water and almost nobody else around. Wimberley proves that some of the most beautiful natural spots in Texas aren't hidden in remote wilderness. They're sitting quietly, just outside a small town most people drive right past. Number 1, Fredericksburg. And the most stunning small town in Texas is Fredericksburg. And if you've never been, this is the one that will genuinely surprise you. Founded by German settlers in 1846, Fredericksburg blends Texas hill country landscape with authentic German heritage in a way no other town on this list comes close to. Historic Sunday houses, half-timbered architecture, and bakeries still using recipes brought over by settlers nearly 175 years ago all line the same streets, giving the entire downtown a genuinely unique character that feels imported straight from Bavaria, yet unmistakably Texan at the same time. It's also now the beating heart of Texas wine country, with over 60 wineries scattered along Highway 290 alone, a number that's grown massively in just the past 2 decades, and turned this once quiet farming town into a genuine wine-tasting destination. Just outside town sits Enchanted Rock, a massive pink granite dome rising nearly 400 feet out of the surrounding landscape, which visitors can actually hike and climb, rewarded with sweeping panoramic views of the hill country at the top. Best time to visit: spring, specifically late March through April, when the surrounding fields explode with bluebonnets and turn entire hillsides a deep, vivid blue. Do this. Start the morning hiking Enchanted Rock while it's still cool, then spend the afternoon wine tasting along 290. Fredericksburg is genuinely the only town on this entire list where you can do both a serious hike and a full wine tasting circuit in a single day. If this list had to end with one town, it had to be this one.